welcome to Shameless Stories. So Shameless Stories is a narrative or a podcast that we are basically creating to share our stories without the burden of shame, guilt, fear, or judgment. This podcast will talk about personal experiences, struggles, vulnerabilities, and in a way that emphasize acceptance, growth, and empowerment. Our stories are often the focus of lessons learned from difficult situations, allowing our storyteller to reclaim their experiences and find strength in them. By sharing from a place of self-acceptance, distance, whatever you want to call it, we can inspire others, foster connections, and encourage a sense of community among those who have had many similar experiences. Our shameless stories shift the focus from negative feelings associated to shame to a narrative of resilience, hope, vulnerability, and how it can be more of a source of strength than weakness. So sharing our shameless stories can be profoundly impactful for lots of reasons. And I'm really, really excited to welcome my first guest. Her name is Lisa Marie. She is the founder of Rock and Rose Rituals and the Conkers Earth School. And but this is the first time we've spoken, so I'm really excited to see where we go with this conversation. And I guess the thing that I mean, my area of expertise is PR, and like people often wonder why Shameless Stories is connected to PR, but effectively it's about going into that depth of why we're here, why we do what we do. And often a question that I ask people when they come and work with me is, you know, what's the worst thing you could possibly see written about yourself in a newspaper? And you see people go, maybe not that, maybe not. I mean, you know, I think we've been conditioned to fear the press, to fear the media, to fear being, you know, our dirty laundry being aired. And so I'm going to ask that question to you. What's the worst thing that could possibly be seen on the front of a newspaper about yourself? I mean, or we can start with, tell us a bit about yourself first.
You go straight for it, don't you?
Let's just go straight in. No. So, I mean, tell me a little bit about your business and kind of how you came to be.
So my business, Rock and Rose Rituals, began in sort of at the very end of 2020, beginning of 2021. And that was after a number of years living in my van and traveling in my van and finding myself at lots of stone circles and sacred sites and having just one after the other crazy experiences. You know, unraveling everything that I thought I was. None of that. And then, yeah, lockdown happened, didn't it? So it was the second one. And it just started coming through me. The name was delivered to me, and the whole concept, I would say, it mostly came from an interaction with an ancient yew tree that I had called the Fortingal yew tree in the heart of Scotland. She kind of guides my whole business of Rock and Rose, sort of giving me ancient knowledge that I'm to bring back to help people and to remind people that they are their own healers. We essentially don't need to spend lots of money on different therapies and things. When we have the right tools, we remember the tools, we can do it ourselves. We can do a lot ourselves. It's nice to have support and guidance and space holding, of course. There's lots of things. So it's bringing the sacred and the ritual into every day again. So everything can be sacred. Everything, well, is sacred when we shift our perspective. And then through that, so with Rock and Rose Rituals, I make candles, working with different plant spirits that come to work with me with each candle. So each candle comes with a message from the plant spirits. And I realize I've got kind of an oracle deck in candles now.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It kind of arrives, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's only like you look at it, you're like, that's really cool. I would never have thought of any of this. Never. And the big part of it is bringing ritual bathing back to people. So I've got a number of different bathing rituals. So yeah, I was living alone in Scotland, loving it, love Scotland. It is my home of my soul. Then I was looking for somewhere to rent. I couldn't find anywhere, so my friend said, why don't you come and visit? So I did, and just happened she's right by Tintagel, so I decided to visit there and met a man at the castle, and now here I am in Dorset with the School of Magic.
Just like that. I love that.
You know, it's all moved so quickly. Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I guess like if that was around the pandemic time, then
Mhm.
I mean, what was life like before the pandemic? Do you mind me asking?
No, not at all. It was great because I was already, I'd already broken free. So there wasn't any great change for me in terms of, being locked down. I loved it. I absolutely loved it. I'm very comfortable with my own company. But prior to that, it was 2015. I was living in London, had a big catering business and married and, very materialistic life. And then poof, soul woke me up to say, this is not who we are. We've got shit to do. Come on, let's go. So all of that went, I bought a camper van and moved into it, and I got rid of everything. So I went from lots of material things to almost nothing.
That's
Uh,
amazing.
yeah, it was not easy at all. Because the time you don't know what's going on, your whole world looks like it's turning to shit. But actually, it's about to get really, really cool. It's really magical.
So what was
Uh,
this specific moment then? So you say that spirit woke you up. What did that look like? How was your
that was for
awakening?
me. Now looking back, I can see it was trying to happen when I was about 29, 30.
Right.
I thought I was just having a breakdown, really depressed for a long time, but having experiences, but just like didn't know what was going on. So I shut it all down, tried to be normal again. And but then eventually, so it's 2015. I just got married. 6 months after I got married, and one morning I woke up and I heard the words, "You need to go to Canada." So, I messaged. I've got a friend in Vancouver, and I sent him a message saying, "I'm thinking of coming to visit you." He said, "Great. Do you want to come next week? I'll buy your ticket. This is my wedding gift." So it was all set up for me to go there. And literally, it was the very first day I landed, met up with my friends, then went back to my hotel for the evening, and just floods and floods and floods of tears. No idea why, because I was happy, newly married, everything I thought was going great. But then the guidance to just start writing, it was just streams and streams of consciousness. And after that, nothing was the same again. My sensitivities had returned. So, I mean, when you're living in London, you can't be hypersensitive because it's just too much going on. So I couldn't be in London anymore. I couldn't be, just me. I would feel people's energies. I'd feel the energy in everything. It became what I say. I became like Rain Man. It was just everything was so overstimulating, and I couldn't move for it. So yeah, I just knew I needed to get in nature. Yeah, my husband and I, we tried to make it work, but 20 months later, we both said this is not going anywhere. Because after that, it was like he was speaking Russian, I was speaking Mandarin. We couldn't connect. We lived in very different realities then. So that ended.
Yeah, that's fascinating that you say that, because I think that it's almost like you're on another frequency, isn't it? And you
Very
you
much so.
try, but it
Yeah,
never quite.
yeah. You can't. And he would share his version of his truth, and I would share mine. And I actually said, do we actually live in two different realities? And he's like, I think we do, because we had very different stories, very different stories. Even though we know we were both there, the stories were completely different.
But that's
So I
what I
do.
love. I love that.
Mm,
Mm.
yeah,
And the fact you were able to share that with each other, you were able to talk about your story and then realize that even though you were living in the same place,
mm,
space, your view of the world was very, very different.
yeah, yeah. It wasn't as calm as that.
It's always calmer when you're looking back on it, really, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Yeah, yeah, there was a lot of friction. I mean, yeah, I'm not a hot-headed person, but he was, and I felt for him. The woman he married was suddenly gone. It was a big shift for him.
I think I mean, I speak to so many other women that have been through very similar experiences where,
Mm.
1 minute you're like this, and the next minute you have a very different view of the world.
Mm.
Um, yeah, I know that the pandemic opened a lot of people up to that. And,
Yeah,
in my own personal journey, I've been through a little bit of that. But it's, so you presumably left London, you and your husband parted ways,
hmm
not as smoothly as I'm saying, but
no.
But now you're here, and so tell me a bit more about Rock and Rose Rituals and the magic school. I love the idea of a magic school.
I know, me too. Me too. It is, I'm always like, this my life? Is this real? Am I awake? So I obviously came down here and had all these candles and these bathing rituals. I was just selling online at the time, quite a lot to America, which was interesting. So originally my company was called Rock and Rose Rituals Scotland. But
Right.
then obviously now I'm in Dorset, I couldn't call it that anymore. So I say born in Scotland, raised in Dorset. But when we were Scotland, we had a lot of orders to America. So I came down here and I was doing a few well-being fairs and Christmas fairs, selling my stuff. And I decided that I'd like to have my own shop, but I don't want to be on a high street. I want to be in amongst the trees, which is probably a terrible business idea. But that's exactly where I am. I'm literally on the grounds of a country park estate in Dorset. It's absolutely stunning. It's like 160 acres right on the coast.
Wow.
And we have sort of like what was, I don't know, one of the barns. And it just looks like a sort of a shed or a barn from the outside, and people walk in, they can't quite believe what's inside. It is very, very, very
I need
magical.
to come and visit now.
Yeah, you do. What about you?
So I'm in Hampshire, but I have a van also.
Oh, you
So,
do?
yeah,
Ah,
I
fantastic.
didn't move out into my van, but when I have, well, I have two girls of a
Yes.
certain age, and they're moving into their teens, and I'm moving into that stage of life. So
Yeah.
Harry, my van, becomes the extension of the house for me sometimes. I think my neighbours must think I'm a bit mad because I sit out in
Yeah.
there and they're like, what? Crazy
Mum's on
van
the
lady house
driveway.
again.
Oh, amazing.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
they are.
I love the fact that you have a van and that you travelled.
Oh, yeah,
That
yeah,
was
yeah. So yeah, three years. I thought I maybe would do 6 months maximum, but it turned into 3 years. And I would just pick up because I don't have children, so it's a lot easier to go through all this when you don't have children, I think. I don't know how you parents do it.
we
Yeah.
move the camper van on the drive.
Yeah,
That's what we
that's how you do it. Um, so I was, yeah, picking up seasonal work on campsites, just working on campsites. But every single campsite I worked on, children would follow me around everywhere. And like my colleagues were like, well, Lisa, what are you doing? I was like, I have no idea. They just follow me. They're just everywhere I went. And it just got to the point. I do love children. And I think it's because I still am one. So two of the campsites put me in charge of children's entertainment. So I became a children's entertainer.
That's
um,
amazing. That's so
yeah, yeah.
cool.
It's like the children were showing me what I'm here to do. And so, yeah, when I got my space, I just had £200 to my name. I didn't have anything. And I was like, I have no idea how. I mean, that all came about through a massive nudge from spirit, probably Merlin, when I was actually on the phone to the stately home to look for a space for a friend of mine to run a workshop. But as I'm on the phone, my messages always come through my right side. I don't know how yours are.
Mm.
Um, I'm on the phone and they're saying, ask about a shop for you, Lisa. And I was like, I can't, I haven't got any money, like literally talking back to them at the same time. Just do it. Okay. So I asked them and they said, we might have something. Send us a proposal. We'll have a look and come back to you. This proposal just wrote itself. I mean, originally the proposal was all about a candle shop, workshop space. I teach candle making and gift shop. But yeah, so the proposal wrote itself. They got back to me. They said, we love it. Come and see the space. And I was literally in like a few weeks later. Thankfully, they didn't charge me the rent until a month later. So I had a bit of time to bring in some
Excellent.
money.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah, I didn't. My
that's so
friends helped.
easy.
Yeah.
It just sounds so easy when you start to really tune into your intuition or
Yes.
listen to
Yeah.
guidance. That's
Yeah.
when life starts to flow a bit.
Absolutely, it does. Yeah. And I think a big part of me sharing my story, and I'll be doing a lot more, is to show people you don't need a lot. You really don't need a lot to follow your dreams. But when you get that guidance, you follow it. It never, ever, ever, ever makes any logical sense. Never. but when you follow it, it really is where the magical miracles
Yeah,
lie. It really
that's so
is.
true. I think I needed to hear that today. I'm sure our listeners did too. But when I followed my story with my camper van was I've been manifesting a camper van for years. For
Mm.
like middle of the pandemic, I was like, I'd really love one of those. And it's just a bit of a pipe dream and
Hmm.
just out of reach. And I was sitting with a client. She said, "Will you just get on and get one?" I was
Did
like,
you get that?
okay, I think that
Yeah,
was the permission I needed.
yeah, yeah.
And, once I started looking, seriously looking, I found two. I had arranged a test drive. I did the test drive, but I'd found this other one, a blue one on Auto Trader. And I was like, oh, that feels like the right one. I was like,
Hmm.
listen to me, like being really, and then the next day I did the test drive for the first one, hated it. Second one, he said, come and have a look. Harry was living in Woodhenge, outside of Stonehenge. So I
Ooh.
drove down there, had a little look, got inside it, went, yeah, I'll have him.
Yeah.
And my husband's like, you didn't even drive it. Mr.
You didn't.
Logical. And I'm,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's like, no,
I
I
was
didn't drive it. I just knew it was mine.
like
So,
exactly the same with Frida. My stepdad was trying to help me find a van. I was like, no, I'll know her. I'll know it when I see it. And I saw her on Instagram, 45,000 followers. You know, the van that had a following. And I was like, that's the one. And I just wrote them and say, would you consider designing one for me? Because I knew the divorce was coming up, so I'd have a bit of capital. Um, and they said, yeah, I never thought about it. But yeah. And anyway, a few weeks later, they announced that they're moving to Australia. So I wrote to them and said, please sell me your van. They had over 1,000 messages the same. But they
wow.
said, we know that you're the one. Yeah, yeah. But again, never driven it. And even I paid for the RAC to check her over like mechanically. And they said, wouldn't touch that with the barge pole. I was like, I don't care about buying it. And I've had no trouble with her. We've been together, oh my God, since 2018.
I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
same as me. I took it to the van, the service centre, and they were like, "Oh, he's actually in pretty good nick.
Ah,
That's quite a solid bar you've got there." So,
good.
I mean,
Exactly.
he's needed the odd bit here and there, but ultimately, it's been great fun to drive and smash
Yeah.
into, and so, I've taken the kids away in it, which is my ultimate goal, is to try and like embrace that freedom piece, which it sounds like you've really
Yeah.
stepped into freedom.
Oh, yes.
The word freedom, what does that mean to you? How does that?
Uh, to me, it's as important as breathing.
Mm,
I came in a free spirit. I've never ever been one to be told what to do. Still can't. And I mean, I'm very stubborn, but it's so important. I would rather live on very little money, but have lots of time, my time to myself and freedom,
yeah.
than earn lots of money and just have the weekends to myself. So that's how I choose to live.
And I think that, I mean, coming from where you came from, London, successful
Yeah,
business.
yeah.
I mean, it's amazing how the reframe around success and abundance is changing and
Mm.
shifting. And I've really noticed that stepping up lately for a lot of
Yeah.
people, actually. Um,
Very much so, very much so. They call it the Great Awakening. There's lots of people talking about the Great Awakening. And it simply is we're all going, it's like we're waking up from a long, deep sleep and going, what have we been doing?
yeah,
What have we been
shuffling
doing?
about.
Yeah, not living, just existing, just existing. And we don't want to do that.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
freedom is really, really, really important for me. I still have my camper van, and now my partner Dan, he builds them. So we have two camper vans.
I know where
Yeah.
to find you now. I have some specific questions. So, do you have a moment where you felt really vulnerable? And how did
Yeah.
that experience shape the journey that you're on? I mean, it sounds like you've just been making some amazing steps, but was there any particular moment in time that felt?
Oh my God, so many, so many. Yeah, I mean, I did was sort of pushed to the brink of suicide at
Right.
one point with it all. Yeah, absolutely. Um, but as many who may be listening to sort of perhaps been there, it's not that you want to die, it's just you want the current reality to end. That's
Yes.
how it was for me. You know, we just want to. I remember just wishing I wouldn't wake up because
Yeah.
it was very very painful leaving your old life behind. And I literally left everything,
Mm.
everything. And then not long afterwards, I went through a bankruptcy because I just hit rock bottom, complete rock bottom. Um, but then I had to go back to London to have a meeting with the bankruptcy trustees, and they were suggesting that they're going to take my van, which is all I had then at that point. Um, but then before I went in, I just gave a little prayer and I was like, thank you for making them human, right? That they actually have hearts and they are compassionate. And it turned out they were. And at one point, the lady in the meeting, she said, so it seems you like dinosaurs then. I was like, sorry. She said, my husband and I had a right laugh about you. We went through all your Facebook. He's an amateur paleontologist, and my Facebook at the time, because I love dinosaurs and fossils. I'm a total nerd. And yeah, and they just decided that that was all right, and they let me keep my van, and they were very gentle on me. But so I left the meeting feeling really happy that at least I've got my van. I might not have money, but I've got somewhere to sleep. And as I came out, I received a phone call from my friend. She said, Lisa, what colour's your van? And it was white at the time. She's now yellow. She said, I'm really sorry. Someone's put a brick through your window. So not only I had like no real home, no money. Someone had put a brick through my window and stolen all of my clothes. And that was like, and at that point, I burst out laughing. I was like, what else have you got? And
Come on.
it makes you fearless. In that moment, I became completely and utterly fearless. And so, yeah, I slept with a hole in my window in the streets of London that night. And the next day, my friends, they made me a little packed lunch because I was going up to Wales at a campsite job that I found. And they gave me a little packed lunch, and she gave me a bag of clothes, and all these clothes were way better than what I had before, like North Face jacket and Hunter Wellington boots. It was amazing. It was so generous. And they gave me a book and they said, don't open it until you get to Wales. Anyway, I got there and it was a book on car mechanics for girls. And inside was £200 and a note saying, you're one in a million, have a window on us.
Oh,
That was said, yeah, so
oh,
beautiful.
how amazing.
Yeah, so beautiful. And it was at that moment of absolute rock bottom where it's like you just feel completely stripped of everything, where that's where the miracles start to happen.
Oh wow, that's definitely got me in the feels. That's like, wow. Like how
Yeah.
amazing that.
Uh,
I mean, that just just highlights the compassion and love in humanity when we are open to it.
totally, totally. Yeah, and I think sometimes we are tested by our soul or our higher self. Like, are you really ready to step up? And if you say yes, just put your seatbelt on.
Wow. So you got your window, you went to
Yeah,
Wales.
went to Wales and then got to Scotland. In Scotland, that's when I literally every time I go there, I see roots emerging from the soles of my feet and deep anchoring deep into the earth, especially in the Perthshire area. Yeah, it's very very magical. But
Yeah.
yes, I know vulnerability, but uh, having all of that happen for me doesn't nothing happens to us as it happens for us. Um, it does make you fearless, makes you fearless, and I'm very comfortable with having nothing, but it makes you also, oh my god, beyond 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 grateful for the tiniest little things. Even an indoor toilet I'm still really grateful for. And a proper comfy bed, and yeah, so everything is such a gift. from that
Yeah.
moment, because it's very easy to get caught up in your life and you know the day-to-day stuff and not be grateful for the simple things.
Yeah, you become almost, I mean, I know that there's a school of thought around be detached to things. You have no attachment to things.
Yes.
And that, you know, that is because when we become attached to things, we get disappointed. And I know, I
Yeah.
mean, a yogi showed me that, but there is an element of, I feel like, I mean, I've had this with the kids, like, oh, I don't give my old shoes away to so and so. It's like, well, you know, their job with you is done now. So, you know, we need to pass these things through so that then pay it forward or whatever. But yeah, I love the fact that you shared that story about your vulnerability. That's just mad. So like, what, I mean, so sharing your story, sharing that with me, how has that helped in your healing journey, or is it just something that
It's yeah, well, I do one-to-one sessions occasionally, as and when they come up, with people who are going through big life changes, just to act as almost like a big sister that's been through it and that knows it. And so often now with how I live in a beautiful wood cabin. It's just, you know, and I have two camper, you know, I am so rich. I don't have a lot of money, but you know, it's just it's so rich and abundant. So people come and they see that, and then when I share where I've been, that's when it's like, okay, if she can do it, then I can definitely do it.
yeah.
And so it's yeah, it helps. I love being of service, and just being able, even if it's just 3 words, you can just make a difference on someone's journey when they're going through all of this. So yeah, I'm very grateful for all of it, all of it. I wouldn't change any of it.
Oh, I love that. And thank you for honoring me with your story. I feel very inspired by what you've shared with me, and it's actually made me think about a few situations of my own that,
Yeah.
you know, it's a gentle reframe. It's like, oh yeah, okay, that's why. Okay. Um, so, you know, you've already answered the question I was going to ask. Is like, how have you learned to embrace the vulnerability? I mean, you're owning it. You're fearless. Would you
Yeah,
agree?
yeah. I would say fully integrated. Um, and now if I have stuff coming up, like I'm a bit weepy, I actually get excited about it, because you know, or if something doesn't work out the way my ego wanted it to work out, I get excited because I know, you know, the saying, if the door doesn't open, it's not your door.
Yeah,
And so, you know, I know something even better is coming, because every single time it is. So I've got it on my fridge actually. Let go and let God,
I love that.
what it is to you, but just to let go. And I fully let go of my everything to a higher power in 2019, when I realized, oh, I'm not the one in control here. I mean, yes, we are both the creation and the creator, but if I just let go of my ideas of how things should be, it's always way better than I could have ever imagined. Way better.
That's a great reminder. Like, that's a t-shirt, isn't it? Seriously,
Let
like,
God.
stop trying
Yeah.
to control everything.
Yeah, yeah. And if you
Because
do,
if
it's
you
like,
do
like
that,
with traveling. Sorry, go on.
so, no, it's like, stop trying to control everything, because if you do that, we'll stick a brick through your window.
Yeah, that's it. Exactly, exactly. Yeah. And you know, and it's like with traveling, and you know, I never make plans. I'll book a flight and that's it. Because if you try and plan everything, or this could apply throughout life, if you try and plan everything, you're blocking the flow of magic
Mm,
and miracles.
yes. We haven't really talked about your magical school, but
Miracle.
yeah, but we're kind of running out of time. I want to stay and talk to you forever.
Yeah, same.
Maybe we will in a minute. But how can people find you? And yeah, where can they get hold of some
So
of the beautiful candles?
So it's all rockandrose.one. And there is a little bit about our Earth School on there. So at the moment, I teach every week magic potions with Merlin. And we are ultimately, the bigger vision is that we are a school for our young masters. So the souls that are incarnating now, they're nothing like we've ever seen before. We are not here to teach them. we're here to hold space for them and to nurture their gifts. They're here to show us, they're here to teach us. So this is what our school is for. So we've got a council building, but it's all, at the moment, we've got a Conkers website being built at the moment. That's not live yet, but you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. And yeah, rockandrose.one.
Looking, I'm going to be checking you out, and I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. And I do find it, I mean, we talk about Merlin very, very briefly, but there was a lot of little technical glitches. So I do think he was having a little bit of a mess around with us today.
Oh, very playful. Very, very playful. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. You can find Lisa on Instagram and a website, as she just mentioned. They'll be in the notes as well when we upload the podcast. Thank you for listening, and join us again soon for another Shameless Stories podcast.
Thank you.